This video will be about date calculations in Google Sheets, and pretty much everything we do here will be probably relevant in Excel as well. So there are a lot of date functions that you can use. Let's start with two very basic ones. So I'm going to start equals and type function today. And today function is one of those functions that doesn't accept any arguments. You basically just type today, open and close parentheses. I'm going to hit enter, and what it's going to output is today's date. There is also a function called now, same way, and it will output today's date and today's time. The main thing about these functions is that the difference between me going here and typing 11/6/2018 and actually using today function is if I open this file tomorrow, this is going to update to tomorrow's date. So today function will update every day to the current date. While if I type a date, it will just be that date tomorrow. Whatever I type today is going to be the same date tomorrow. The same thing applies to now. Now will update all the time. So I'm going to wait a little bit and then I'm going to update this again. So you'll see that time will also change. Now, while we're waiting for that, let's actually go ahead and see. There it is, the time update. So now let's look at some of this data set here. So we have a data set of our sales reps and their sales, and we have the date they contacted customers and the date the sale occurred. And we might want to know how long it took them from the actual contact to the customer to the date of the sale. So that means we have to see how many days is the difference. So if I wanted to do something like that, I could start with an equal sign, and I'm gonna take the end date, the later date, minus earlier date. And if I do that, it will tell me the number of days difference between those two dates. Now, when you're doing this type of calculations, you have to know that whatever result you're looking for, if you're getting the difference between two dates, then it should be number of days. So if those cells are pre-formatted as date, just make sure that you need to change that formatting back to like plain text or general formatting so you get what you're expected to get. So just don't be tricked with formatting. You have to know what to expect, and based on that, choose your formatting. So one thing that's worth to mention about number of days is that, let's say I have a date here and I have, let's make this 11 and we'll make it today's date. So if I want to calculate the difference, if I do equal sign this minus this, I'm gonna get 5 days difference. Depending on the calculation you're trying to do, let's say this is a project. If you start working on a project on 11/1, so November 1st, and you finished working on November 6th, if you want to calculate that initial start date as one of the days you worked on this project, then in addition to just doing the difference, you have to then also add 1 to make sure you're including that initial day in this calculation. So depending on the type of calculation, it will be either the end date minus the beginning date, or it would be the same thing plus 1. So with that being said, let's get back to this. So that gives us the number of days. Let me format this really quickly. Now, other than number of days, we might want to know how many working days it took for this sale to occur. So this person started working with this customer on 10/31/2016. Now we want to know how many business days it took to make the sale. So to do that, we're gonna use a different function. So I'm gonna start with equals. So I'm going to use function called NETWORKDAYS.INTL. So there's a function NETWORKDAYS, and there's also a function NETWORKDAYS.INTL, and NETWORKDAYS.INTL can do everything that NETWORKDAYS can do. So I'm just going to skip this one and I'm going to cover this one. So NETWORKDAYS.INTL is going to ask you for a start date. So that's going to be my start date, comma, and then the end date. It's going to be this, and then comma, and then we have to provide what's the weekend. So there are many types of weekends you can choose from, but you can also create your own custom week. So the way you do that, you basically do a set of quotes, and then if I do 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, so 7 zeros basically, and then we have this optional holidays. For right now, I'm going to skip that. I'm going to close this and hit enter. So see, what I'm getting is 132 using NETWORKDAYS function to calculate the difference between these two dates. Now, the 0, 0, 0 means if I'm adding 0 for this, that means that every day is a working day. So basically, we're working 7 days a week in this particular scenario. And as you can see, I've got a number that's one more than days option that I just calculated the difference, because if we want to again include that beginning date in it, then remember we have to add 1, which is going to get us that NETWORKDAYS calculation number of days. So just keep that in mind, that it is including that initial day in this calculation. Now, let's say we don't work Saturdays and Sundays. So the way this works is that this is your week. So we have 7 days, so I have 7 zeros. And we start the week from Monday. So if I want Saturday and Sunday to be non-working days, then I'm going to go here, and instead of 2 zeros, I'm going to type 1, 1. And those are going to be my non-working days. So if I hit enter, now it will give me there are 95 Monday to Fridays between these two dates. Now, if I wanted to have my Mondays also like a day off, then I would do this, and I'm calculating 76 days if we work Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. So you can create your own custom week by doing this. And again, every number that's a 0, that is a working day. Every number that's a 1 is a non-working day. And finally, the last argument of this function is holidays. So you might want to exclude some holidays out of that range if they end up being one of those working days we don't really work on that holiday date. So if you want to do that, you can basically go on the side here and type your holidays. So let's say these are your holiday dates. Etc. So basically a range where you just type your holiday dates, and what you do, you go here and do a comma and highlight that range as a range of holidays, which you will most likely want to lock most of the time if you're going to be dragging this down. And I, by the way, locked it by using F4. So I hit enter and I drag it down, and that's how you use NETWORKDAYS.INTL function. A start date, end date, the week, which is your working and non-working days, and finally, if you have any holidays, choose those. I'm going to add a few columns here. So a few very basic functions that might be worth knowing is year, month, and day. So if you want to get the year out of a date, you simply just type year, click on a date, and this function is simply going to extract the year out of it. And again, I have to know what I should expect from this function. This function should return the year, so that means this should be converted from this date format to plain format to get me the year. So the same way, if I do month, I click on a date, it extracts the month. And the same problem here, as you can see. So I'm gonna go here, format, and here we go. That's getting me the month. And finally, the same way, if we do day and I click on this day, that's gonna give me the day, which I should again format. Here we go. To continue on this topic, so there is also a function called date. So date might be useful in a few different cases, but one case is if you have some data that was extracted from a data set and you don't have an actual Excel date, but what you do have is this columns of years, month, and day. You can create a valid Google Sheets date by using the function date. So if I do date, see it accepts year, so this is the year, comma, month, this is the month, and the day, and this is the day. So if I do this, so that will create a date out of this. Now another case when this could be useful is when you want to get those cells on the left. So that would be first day of the month. Let's make this look good, I guess. Okay, moving on. So that's our first day of the month. So how do we get the last day of the month? So to get the last day, you can use a function called EOMONTH. You will have to provide it a date to start with. So I'm going to choose that date again. And then the number of months you want offset from that date. So if I do 0, which is 0 months offset, that will give me the last date of that month. So see, that's, well, that was 10/31 already, wasn't it? So let's drag this down a little bit so we can see how this works. So see, that's September 11th here, and then we got September 30th, which is the last day of that month. Now, you can also use this offset. So if you want the last day of the previous month, you can just do -1, and that should take us to the last day of the previous month. If you want the last day of the month after, you can do 1, so that's 1 month later, and you can do 2, so that's basically the offset, how many months before or after. So 0 would be current month. Okay, so I'm gonna hide some of these columns. And I guess add some more columns. So now let's say we have a date and we want to choose a date some number of months after that date. So I'm going to call it same day next month. So if I wanted to do that, I'm going to use a function called EDATE, and you choose a date and then the month's offset. So if I do 1, that will be 1 month later that day. As you can see, I'm getting 11/30th, not 11/31st, because November doesn't have 31st in it. So if I do 2, that will be 2 months later. So you can see December 31st, and then we got 3. That's the next month. You can also do negative offset. So that will be previous month that day, -3, 3 months before that day. And then if you wanted next year, you would just do 12, right? 12 months offset. So that's next year, same day. And obviously -12 would get you last year, same day. There's also this function called days. Now, if you remember, there's a function called day, which gets us the day out of a date. Now, days will calculate the difference between 2 days. This is pretty much the same calculation that I was doing with a regular formula. So it accepts end date and a start date. So if I do this as an end date, comma, this as a start date, and close this, I hit enter, I'm going to get 131, which is the same calculation if I did this minus this. And enter, and that will be the same number. Now, when you do some of these date calculations, sometimes you might want to see the offset from today's date. And this is where you'll use today function a lot. So if I wanted to know how many days it's been from that sale until today, I would do today minus the sale date. And there it is, 605 days. So I can use the function right there, and tomorrow it will update to 606 and the next day 607 because today is going to change, right? You might also be interested in knowing what day of the week this is. So for that, there is a function called Weekday. So you choose the date, comma, and then you choose the type of return. So I'm going to have to use the help here to remember which type is which. So as you can see, if you use type 1, days are counted from Sunday. So Sunday is 1, Saturday is 7 if you use type 1. If you use type 2, then Monday is 1 and Sunday is 7, and type 3 is Monday 0. So I guess for most cases you would use type 2, which is Monday 1 and Sunday 7. So if you do 2, that would mean that's a Monday. And then drag it down, this would make it a Sunday. Now, this is great. It gives you a number. Now, if you don't want to have a number and you want an actual thing that says like Monday or Sunday, then you could use the function text for that. And the way you do it, you use text and then you choose the date. And then as a format, in quotes, you do either DDD. So if I do DDD, 3 Ds, close parentheses, it's going to give me, see, the short version of the day, like MON for Monday. Or I can do 4 Ds, and that will give me full version of the day. So 2 ways to get the weekday, depending if you want a number or you want the text. So you can use the same technique if you wanted to get the month spelled out. So month. So I could use text function again, click on the date, comma, and then instead of DDD, I'm going to do MMM. That will be 3-letter month if I do this, or I can do MMMM for M's, and then it will be longer version of the month. So you can do things like this as well. Moving on, so I'm going to go to this tab. So here we have sales reps, and this is the date they started working with the company. We want to know how many years this person has been with the company. So to do that, I'm going to use a function called DATEDIF, and it has a start date. So that's our start date, comma, and the end date. So if you want as of a specific day, then you would have typed that day somewhere in the cell and click on it. Now for me, I just want as of today, and I want this to update. So I'm going to use today function, and tomorrow it will update, comma. And then finally the unit. So the unit I want is Y in quotes. So that's going to give me how many years this person has been with the company. So now let's say I want to get how many months. So I'm going to just copy that same thing. I'm going to go here and paste. And instead of Y, I'm going to type M. That's going to tell us that this person has been with the company for 120 months total. And the same way, if I do D, that will give me the number of days. Now, if I do M, you will notice that this is the total number of months. So what if I already know this person has been with the company 10 years. I want to know 10 years and how many months in addition to those 10 years. So I can go here and instead of M, do YM. And what that's going to give me, it's the remaining number of months. So right now, see, this person has been 10 years and 0 months because of today's date. Now, if I drag this down, see, this person has been with the company 0 years, but 2 months. So that will give you this. And if you did something like YD, it gives you basically remaining days after you extract the number of years and number of months out of it. So these are pretty useful things that is good to know. So I'm going to do months in this case. Yeah, I guess let's do days too. Here we go. So let's make it look the same, I guess. If you wanted to calculate it as of particular day, so let's say I want to calculate this as of November 1st, 2018. Then I would type this here, and then I would do equals DATEDIF, then start date, and then the end date will be here, which I would lock with F4 because as I drag down, I need to refer to that same cell, comma, and the unit would be Y. So that would be as of that particular day on top. And you would then drag this down. Oops. Let's see what I did here. Oh, I see. So instead of doing 11, I did 1 here, and our calculation doesn't work. So here we go. So for me, I'm just going to change this to today. Anyways. And just drag it down. Okay, so one more case I'm going to talk about is a function called Workday. So if we have a starting date for a project, let's say we start working on something on 10/9/2018, and we know we're going to need to work on this project for 60 working days to finish this project. So we want to know what's going to be the date we finish working on this. So to do that, you can use a function called Workday. And again, there's Workday and WORKDAY.INTL. Like network days, the second one can do everything the first one can. So I'm going to just cover this. And I'm going to choose a start date, comma, number of days, comma, and then weekend again, similar to network days. You can do double quotes and choose what your week is looking like. So again, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. So that will be, we work every single day. And then if you have holidays, you can do comma and provide a range. I'm not going to do holidays on this one. So I'm going to hit enter. So if we work every single day starting on this date, 60 days later, it's going to be this date. Now, if we only work on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. So see, the working days are zeros. So Monday, non-working day, Tuesday, Wednesday, working day, Thursday, not working day, and Friday is working day again. So if I do this, it's going to update when we would finish working on this project. And that's your Workday.INTL, a useful function. And as I said, you can also comma and do a range of holidays like with network days INTL function. And finally, I'm going to talk about a function called DATEVALUE really quickly here. So let's do an example so you can see why that function is necessary. So let's say I'm going to type 11/1/2018, right? And minus this start date. So if I hit enter, I should be getting some sort of number, right? So see, I'm getting negative 39,729 here. And I was trying to get November 1st minus October 9th, 2008. So that would be positive number of days, right? Now the problem is that this is not interpreted as date. And what's happening here, we're taking 11 and then divide 11 by 1, which will take 11, and then take that 11 and divide it by 2018, which will give us some very small number, and then we'll take that and subtract this date out of it. So that's what's happening in here. What you can do to get around this, to make sure that's actually a date instead of a number that you divide, you can use a function DATEVALUE and then provide the date as a string inside of that DATEVALUE function. And that will convert it to a valid date that you can do math with. That gets me the number of days difference. And I think that covers most of useful date functions that you should know about. If you have any questions, please comment. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.